What's up, guys? Welcome back to Michigan Muckraker. My name's Michelle. Today is May 9th of 2023, and in this video I need to talk to you about a very important topic for every city, really, but Grand Rapids, Michigan is having a workshop called Grand Rapids Bridge to Our Future, which is going to be held May 18th of this year, and it's going to focus on the master plan for city development. Now, the Grand Rapids is going to be the example. Sorry, couldn't think of that word for a second. Grand Rapids is going to be the example, but every township, every city, everyone is going to have a master plan that will affect their life. So it's important for you to understand how these workshops actually operate. And I'm going to tell you about ICLEI, which is a global network that cities like Grand Rapids have collaborated with. And I'm going to discuss with you Delphi Technique and what exactly a 15-minute city is, or a 20-minute neighborhood, and how that will affect you. So I'm going to jump in. I have a lot to share with you today. This is really important stuff. Again, not just for Grand Rapids, it's just the example, but everybody will be dealing with these master plans. If yours hasn't been updated since 2020, then look out for an update. If you don't have a master plan yet in your township, look out for it, because they are moving, they being the globalists, are moving to change your life, and this is how they're doing it. So, first I want to show you the local governments for sustainability, the members. And as you can see here, Grand Rapids is a member. So we're going to click here, and you can see that Doug Matthews, the assistant city manager, signed an agreement with them in 2022 on January 4th. And down here you see that the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, which I will explain that in just a second, but we have 3 of them that we're going to be focusing on. So we're going to jump in, but first I'm going to tell you a little bit about ICLEI. We are a global network of more than 2,500 local and regional governments committed to sustainable urban development. These are the guys that are shaping your master plan. That's why it's important. Local Governments for Sustainability is a global network of more than 2,500 local and regional governments committed to sustainable urban development. Active in 125 plus countries, we influence sustainability policy and drive local action for low emission, nature-based, equitable, resilient, and circular development. A bunch of jargon, right? Bunch of key words here. Circular development, we're going to see that quite often. That's happening in Newaygo, that chemical recycling center that's coming to Newaygo. That's part of that circular development. Equitable, that just means wealth redistribution. We all end up the same. And low emission, yes, we all know what that is. Okay, so we bring sustainability to a rapidly developing urban world. Oh, real quick, resilient. That's another word you need to remember, because the city manager for Grand Rapids actually brings up resiliency. ICLEI makes sustainability an integral part of urban development and creates systemic change in urban areas through practical, integrated solutions. We help cities, towns, and regions anticipate and respond to complex challenges, from rapid urbanization and climate change to ecosystem degradation and inequity. Not inequality, inequity. Equal outcomes. The local and regional governments in our network confront these challenges by incorporating sustainability into day-to-day operations and policy. We invest in the capacity and knowledge needed to design solutions and make decisions informed by data, scientific evidence, and local realities and pressures. What data? What scientific evidence? That matters. This is 2023. Our 5 pathways towards low emission, nature-based, equitable, resilient, and circular development are designed to create systemic change. We work in cities, towns, and regions of all sizes with varying capacities and challenges. Many have set and reached ambitious targets and are at the forefront of sustainability, pioneering new solutions and challenging the status quo. Others are taking early steps towards transformation, strengthening their systems and capacities to achieve sustainability goals. Across the world, ICLEI brings the latest global knowledge and solutions to the local context. Let's see here. Our members and team of experts work together through peer exchange, partnerships, and capacity building to create systemic change for urban sustainability. Creates connections among the local, regional, national, and global governmental levels. Global government. That's got to be what? UN, EU? We advocate for robust national and global sustainability policies that reflect the interests of local, regional governments and their communities. ICLEI forges strategic alliances with international organizations, national governments, academic and financial institutions, civil society, and the private sector. We create space for innovation with our multidisciplinary teams and work alongside our partners to create new ways to support sustainable development at the urban scale. Right there, that is the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I'll show you really quick. This is United Nations, Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. These are the 17 goals right here. So we're going to go back and see what goals that Grand Rapids promised to achieve, I guess by 2030, but maybe even earlier. When a pioneering group of local and regional governments founded ICLEI, they took action before sustainability was widely viewed as fundamental to development. For decades, our efforts have continued to put sustainability at the top of the agenda for local and regional governments across the world. Over time, ICLEI has expanded and developed, and we are now working in over 125 countries with global experts in more than 24 offices. These guys are in our cities telling our city managers or city planners how to build the city. They are directly affecting our lives by influencing our city planning. So if you work in Grand Rapids, if you shop in Grand Rapids, if you live in Grand Rapids, this will affect you directly, this plan. Again, May 18th at 5 p.m., they are supposedly looking for your input, but we're going to get into exactly how they manipulate you, and it's called the Delphi Technique, and we're going to get into that. Through our collective efforts to build a sustainable urban world, ICLEI is shifting the trajectory of global development. Thank you guys, by the way, for joining me. If you like this kind of content, smash that like button and subscribe. Right here, our approach. Sustainable urban development is the key to a more sustainable world. Our pathway is our approach. They engage at local to global levels, shaping policy and sparking action to transform urban environments worldwide. There you go. I just tell you. We build connections. Who voted for these people? In America, we're supposed to have a vote. That is our voice. But these people are going around that. That's the problem here. It all sounds good, potentially, but it's not good. We build connections across levels of government, sectors, and stakeholder groups, sparking city to city, city to region, local to global, and local to national connections. By linking subnational, national, and global actors, policies, commitments, and initiatives, they are going around our vote. ICLEI strengthens actions at all levels in support of sustainable urban development. At the subnational level, ICLEI drives change along 5 interconnected pathways that cut across sectors and jurisdictional boundaries. Holy crap, it's like they're bragging about it. This design enables local and regional governments to develop solutions in a holistic and integrated way, creating change across entire urban systems. These pathways outlined below are part of the ICLEI commitment and strategic vision of 2021 to 2027, which guides the work. If you come down here, cities are complex systems. The components of urban systems, from food distribution networks and energy grids to transport and greenways, are interconnected and dynamic. Intervening to create change in any one of these components may impact others, creating systemic change. I want to keep saying systematic. Designing solutions that take these interconnections into account is critical to sustainable development. The 5 pathways towards low-emission, nature-based, equitable, resilient, and circular development are designed to create systemic change. Okay, real quick. I'm going to go here. This is from Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21, Rosa Corey. One of the elements of a new rule of law is the creation of new language to go with it. Called jargon, this new vocabulary has a different meaning for those in the know from what you would understand from just seeing or hearing those words. Nearly every profession has its jargon, but the implementers of UN Agenda 21, or 2030, rely on the obscurity of their definitions to keep you from becoming alarmed. Livable, walkable, vibrant, bikeable, consensus, conversation, progressive, community, diversity, carbon footprint, smart, vision, green, stakeholders, regional, sustainable. Buzzwords and slogans are used as tags to manipulate you. When you hear jargon words like this, you are being conditioned to support and accept the project or plan they're attached to without questioning it. Though these words, by their regular usage in the media and implied acceptance by your peers, tell you that something is popular. They are designer buzzwords, jargon that has been created to help you feel that you belong to the masses, that you are doing something positive and good, and that you'll gain acceptance by participating. The best public relations people in the world are working on these terms just for you. The word consensus, for example, is defined in my dictionary as an opinion or position reached by a group as a whole. In the PCSD's list of vital elements to incorporate into their recommendations, they include this statement: we need a new collaborative decision process that leads to better decisions, more rapid change, and more sensible use of human, natural, and financial resources in achieving our goals. A new collaborative decision process. The new definition for consensus is the neutralization of expressed opposition. In the old way of doing things, the democratic way, an issue is put before the voters and they vote on it directly, or they have a representative who reviews the issues, debates them publicly, and then votes. If the voters are not satisfied with the outcome, they can initiate a referendum or vote out the representative. Sustainable America, a new consensus, does not allow for actual dissent. There can be no opportunity for failure in implementing Agenda 21. In fact, the cabinet secretaries reported that they could implement approximately 2/3 of the PCSD's recommendations administratively. 2/3 going around your vote. However, it is not desirable that you notice that you are not being given a choice in the most important issues of your life. So, you are given the illusion that you are making decisions for yourself. As with the earlier example of the glasses of water and milk, the principle of taking 2 opposing points of view and mixing them to render a third does not in fact represent your opinion. It might be said that it doesn't represent the other side either, but since the other side is running the meeting, you can be sure that the manipulation will result in their predetermined outcome. And then she's talking about the workshops that they've been having. This came out 2011. It's a really good book. You should pick it up. You'll find that the water never gets into the picture at all. The real meaning of consensus is to take away your voice and leave you feeling as if you are the only one who has some problem with the results. The President's Council on Sustainable Development incorporated the Delphi Technique into its recommendations so that more rapid change could be imposed on you through clever manipulation. And I'm going to get into the Delphi Technique, but first we need to continue on. The pathways provide a framework for designing integrated solutions that balance the patterns of human life and the built and the natural environments. They encourage holistic thinking to ensure ICLEI, as a network of local and regional governments and global experts, optimizes our impact. For instance, we consider how nature-based development contributes to resilience, or how to bring equity into low-emission development. When these pathways guide local and regional development, urban systems become more sustainable. the 5 pathways. And you're going to see, yep, resilient development path, equitable and people-centered development path, low emission development path. I believe those are the 3. See, gotta close that one. Yep, resilient development. This is what Doug Matthews, the assistant city manager of Grand Rapids, promised to do by 2030. 100% renewable. Equitable and people-centered, and low emission development. And again, the SDGs. We're going to get into these really quick. So 11, 13, and 7. 7. Ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Sounds great. I'm going to give you an alternative to that. This comes out of The Great Reset and the Struggle for Liberty by Michael Rechtenwald, and he has a translation that I find intriguing, and I think that you will as well. So, goal 7. Ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Translation. Promote and legislate renewable energy to the exclusion of fossil fuel-based energy. Exercise centralized control of energy production and distribution using government sanctions, subsidies, taxes, and financial pressure on corporations, ESGs. Outlaw gasoline consumption and gas-driven locomotion. Monitor and restrict carbon-based energy use with individual carbon footprint tracking. Encourage, mandate the purchase of carbon credits from the poor by the wealthy. Again, if you look into carbon credits, the fact that a rich person can just pay money to offset their carbon and continue to fly around, that tells you everything you need to know, right? If you're wealthy, you can just pay for the carbon. But if you're poor, well, you're screwed. Let's see, the other one is 13. 11. Make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Translation. Exert centralized governmental and stakeholder control over urban planning through government-backed architectural projects. Limit living space through smart architecture. Design and zoning laws. Limit resource use through smart monitoring technologies and smart cities. Locate populations within reach of public transportation to eliminate automobile use. Overwrite zoning laws that prevent the building of high-rise housing in the suburbs. The smart stuff is already happening. I mean, Consumers Energy, they just put in the 4G smart meters, and you could not opt out. Well, you could opt out, but then you have to pay an extra $5, and you still have the 3G smart meter. You just won't have the 4G. And maybe in Grand Rapids, you might even have 5G now, but I don't live in Grand Rapids. I live in the country, but I shop in Grand Rapids. So another smart thing that Consumers Energy, they won't allow you to get an analog meter. So that's out. That's not an option for Consumers Energy. Other states, it's an option, not for Michigan. And then the other thing is a smart meter they want to put on your hot water heater. They just came out with that. They're actually incentivizing with like $39 you get if you let them put a smart meter on your hot water heater, which means they can turn off your hot water heater. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy to me. And the last one, 13, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. So the translation, according to Rechtenwald, acknowledging that the United Nations Framework Convention of Climate Change is the primary international intergovernmental forum for negotiating the global response to climate change. All right, translation. Climate change catastrophism, stemming from IPCC reports, must dictate energy policies and all other resource use policies, which must be directed by the United Nations. All other sources of information must be deemed misinformation or disinformation and dismissed, condemned as climate change denialism, akin to violent extremism. And I'm sure that you've heard denialism a million times, right? Science denier, climate denier, election denier. These are all just ways to shut people down for questioning. So whenever you hear that, you need to ask, why are they saying that? Why are they calling them a denier? There's a lot of subterfuge going on we must be aware. What else do they say? They aim to build a global policy environment that supports local and regional governments in their efforts to scale up sustainable development worldwide. Is right here. Yes. ICLEI is active in efforts to advance the new Global Sustainable Development Agenda, including the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Paris Climate Agreement, and the New Urban Agenda. So, no question about it, Grand Rapids is implementing Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. And it's not a non-binding, well, it is a non-binding agreement, but we're bound. So, this is the information for the Bridge to Our Future Grand Rapids workshop. Help shape the future of the city of Grand Rapids. The Bridge to Our Future workshop will dive deeper into 3 important topics that emerged from public input gathered in winter of 2023. Now, we just heard what that input, was manipulated. So they have a predetermined outcome, they have a vision of the city, and they want you to feel like you helped get to that predetermined outcome. Land use planning for climate mitigation and adaptation, land use planning for environmental justice, health, and equity, and 15-minute city, land use, housing, mobility. Schedule 5 p.m. to 8:30. Join us and your neighbors. Sign up below. Attendees are welcome without registering, but the RSVP will help ensure there is enough food and materials at the event. The event is family friendly and refreshments will be provided. So, and there's I'll leave this link below. There's this if you want to RSVP. I'm not going to. I'm just going to pop up. But you do whatever you would like to do. I hope that I see you there. If you're in the area, think that this is really important. Let's dive deeper. We're creating a new community master plan that will define the vision of how our city will grow and develop over the next 20 years. A CMP can address topical concepts related to land use, such as equity, housing, environmental justice, and economic development. The last plan is from 2002, and it's time for a new one. I think they started in 2019, I think is when they started this. For our next round of engagement, we're hosting a Bridge to Our Future workshop that will dive deeper into 3 important topics that emerged from the public input gathered. So, as you can see here, again, 15-minute city. What is a community master plan? A community master plan is a long-term guide that presents the goals and values of a community. Does it? It is the broadest policy document a community can create for its future development. The plan is based on input from residents, businesses, and other community stakeholders. It defines a vision for the future and includes topics like land use, housing, development, and infrastructure. The Community Master Plan also provides specific actions to achieve the vision. The plan will serve as a foundation for community decisions and ordinances. And again, this master plan is not just in Grand Rapids, obviously. Check your city master plan, see if it's been updated recently or is going to be updated. How is this different from other planning efforts in Grand Rapids? The city of Grand Rapids is well known for its ongoing planning work by city departments. The Community Master Plan will build upon existing planning efforts within the city. It will also assist in coordinating planning and development efforts. This plan will analyze population shifts, housing needs, economic trends, and more. The Community Master Plan is a long-range plan and will shape future physical improvements in the city. What can the Community Master Plan do? What can't it do? The Community Master Plan takes findings from background studies and public input and turns them into goals and actions. The plan can inform the work of elected officials by outlining strategies and timelines to reach communities' goals. Land use and infrastructure are central elements of the Community Master Plan, but they are not the only pieces. Again, United Nations Agenda 21 is a land use document. The plan can also address housing, economic development, parks and recreation, and more. The Community Master Plan is not legally enforceable, as it is non-ordinance or law. Instead, it guides community development and supports laws like zoning ordinances. Who should attend? everyone. Community input is important to the success of the plan. The Bridge to Our Future workshop is an opportunity to provide feedback and insight in the planning process. That's what they want you to believe. I mean, you definitely need to go, but we need to understand what they're trying to do. So they're trying to get us to this certain outcome. I just wanted to show you this Office of Sustainability. We started our sustainability journey around 2005 with a focus on environment. As a municipality, it's important for us to understand how our work impacts entire systems, communities, and the environment. For this reason, we now use sustainability as a way to access how our policies, plans, and programs impact not just the environment, but also the people and the prosperity of our community. Notice how not just the environment before people. So yeah, I'll leave the link for this. It has tons of other information that you may want to get into, but we're going to jump to the strategic plan, updated October 2022, originally published in April 2019. And this is from the city manager. I am honored to serve you as city manager and committed to leading the city organization in a way that brings the hopes and dreams of our community to fruition. It is because of you, the people who live and work here, as well as the city's elected officials and staff who dedicate themselves to public service, that Grand Rapids is one of America's premier cities. We have accomplished a lot and our future is bright, but we do have challenges. This updated strategic plan is a refinement of the first version of the plan, which was one of my early key initiatives as city manager. He was put into place to update the plan. Upon arriving in Grand Rapids in 2018, it became clear to me that a strategic plan was needed to organize and focus the work of the city. That initial plan was created in early 2019 through a collaborative process, including the city commission and staff, was approved on April 9th of 2019, and has guided city fiscal and operational planning since then. I am excited to share with you this updated version of the City of Grand Rapids Strategic Plan, which continues the foundational elements of the first version and is informed by the innovation and agility spurred by the pandemic that resulted in both temporary and permanent changes to our operations. The city's core values of accountability, collaboration, customer service, equity, innovation, and sustainability remain the foundation for the plan and are unchanged. Here we go. However, we have enhanced our sustainability focus by adding more emphasis on climate resiliency. And just a reminder, yes, climate resiliency, I think is this one. Resilient development. Yes, he is in line. And has been. Whoops, where am I at? Way over here. Okay. I lead with these values and will hold myself and city staff accountable for upholding these values. The vision and mission statements, likewise, are unchanged. As city manager, I am responsible for setting the mission to elevate quality of life through excellent city services. We will continue to accomplish this through implementation of this plan, which is our community playbook for aligning initiatives, resources, goals, department operations, projects, and investments with a transparent and trackable timeline. Yeah, right, transparent. It will continue to shape our budget, guide our near-term progress, and help us achieve our long-term vision. While it's critical that we hold one another accountable for results, it's also important that we continue our collaboration with the community and that you hold us accountable as well. Yeah, government held accountable. Not in my lifetime. With your help, we can achieve the outcomes in this plan. This is particularly important as we continue to embrace equity in every aspect of this plan. Equity, yes, equal outcomes. We must ensure that all people are respected and valued, and we need to work together to eliminate the disparate impacts on communities of color due to systemic and institutional injustices. Not one of these outcomes will be successful if it fails to advance a more equitable future. Finally, I am extremely grateful for the tremendous support provided by our city commissioners, sustainability and performance management officer, Alice Sutter. I need to look into that, sustainability and performance management officer. and the many staff who were instrumental in the creation of the first version and this updated version of the plan. Our city staff are truly the champions behind this plan, and I am looking forward to continuing to work with each and every one of them to successfully implement this plan and positively impact our community. Depends on what you consider positive, I suppose. I also am thankful for the support of our community and the various ways community members continue to provide feedback that informs city service delivery. So this shows some of the people. Rosalind Bliss, second term expires next year, so the end of next year. I am going to confess, I don't know. Can she run again? If you guys know, let me know. Can you go a third term as mayor? And she's, obviously she's working for this goal as well. So if she can go another term, I couldn't see why she wouldn't be reelected. But we'll see. You never know. 2024 is going to be a wild, wild ride. So 198,000 people, and the median income is $59,000 for Grand Rapids. 37% renewable energy. 48% carpooled. So just some stats for you, some recognition. #1 beer city, 10 consecutive years. As a beer fan, even though I quit drinking alcohol, I do love that the city has such a great microbrewery scene. And I haven't been downtown in a while, so hopefully it's still going well. I know cities are hurting right now, a lot of crime and such, but anyway, here are the goals. Accountability, always acting with integrity and transparency, and being responsible for what we do and say. Collaboration, working together in partnership with others. Customer service, professionally serving those who live, work in, or visit the city. Equity, leveraging city influence to intentionally remove and prevent barriers created by systemic and institutional injustice. Innovation, challenging how things have been done before, fulfilling community needs by offering new ways. And sustainability, making decisions with the goal of achieving long-term net positive benefits that are informed by an understanding and how those decisions will impact climate resiliency and the environment, people, and communities, and finances, both today and in the future. Grand Rapids will be nationally recognized as an equitable, welcoming, innovative, and collaborative city with a robust economy, safe and healthy community, and the opportunity for a high quality of life for all. Mission, to elevate the quality of life through city services. So, planning process. We began our journey, strategic planning, by creating this framework to guide the creation of our plan. The framework is still accurate today and demonstrates how the strategic plan aligns with the master plan and the short-term fiscal plan, how values, visions, and mission shape our city's identity and create the roadmap for strategic plan, how the plan's priorities, outcomes, objectives, strategies, and metrics work together to define how we hope to achieve and how we plan to achieve. So I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I will leave the link down below. I'm going to read this equity statement because I think it's important, and then I'm going to get into a few articles about the process so far for Grand Rapids. The City of Grand Rapids is dedicated to advancing equitable outcomes and opportunities by leading with racial equity and address root cause of disparities. The city defines equity as a condition achieved when people have the tools, resources, connections necessary to be fully engaged and prepared to benefit from the opportunities they seek. Racial equity is achieved when one's race or ethnicity does not determine, in a statistical sense, how one experiences opportunity, power, and life outcomes. So, racial equity is achieved when one's race or ethnicity does not determine, in a statistical sense, how one experiences opportunity, power, and life outcomes. I'm not gonna lie, what does that even mean? Statistical. This targeted approach on racial equity will advance our universal goal of elevating quality of life in Grand Rapids. Equity is one of the city's 6 values and must be embedded into all our decisions, policies, and practices. In an effort to dismantle the systemic and institutional injustice that has been prevalent throughout our history, the city has made the conscious choice to highlight equity in each priority area of our strategic plan. The first objective in this plan outlines the city's commitment to creating a structure within city operations to lift up racial equity throughout the organization, so that each department has the knowledge, skills, and support to intentionally remove and prevent barriers created by systemic and institutional justice. To me, this is saying we're going to have like anti-bias training. And I worked at Starbucks in 2018 when that anti-bias training came out, and let me tell you, it did the opposite. It did not bridge any gaps between black and white, because the whole video, unfortunately, was about black versus white. And people commented after the meeting. I mean, Starbucks shut down to have it. It was an indication I needed to get out of there. Additionally, to the extent possible, all plan metrics will be disaggregated. Yes, I was right. By race and ethnicity, and when needed as a proxy, by geography. This statement is an urgent call to action to transform government to achieve positive and sustainable community level impact. The city of Grand Rapids centers racial equity so that the recognitions listed on page 7 will be lived reality of all Grand Rapids residents, regardless of race or ethnicity. When we read those rankings and recognitions, we must always ensure Grand Rapids is the best place to live. And number 4, city where the average worker's pay has increased the most since 2019. For everyone who calls Grand Rapids home. We must be mindful of the areas that require improvement, where data studies have statistically shown people of color have higher disparate outcomes in areas such as health, employment, housing, entrepreneurship, and education that leads to lower quality of life. We are fully aware of our challenges and opportunities before us as we lead with equity. We also know that as a municipality, we are uniquely positioned to reduce disparities through policy, intentional practices, transparency, and accountability. The city, in partnership with organizational allies and community, can help make Grand Rapids truly the best place to live in the U.S. for everyone. This is from the Government Alliance of Race and Equity. Racial inequities have been baked into government, and racial inequities across all indicators for success are deep and pervasive. We also know that other groups of people are still marginalized, including based on gender, sexual orientation, ability, and age, to name but a few. Focusing on racial equity provides the opportunity to introduce a framework, tools, and resources that can also be applied to other areas of marginalization. Again, the anti-bias training did the opposite. It made people more biased. Embedded equity throughout governmental operations, and I'm talking about on both sides. It was not a good thing. Strategies: elevate, organize, and expand equity work across the city and through targeted investments in neighborhoods. Evaluate budget proposals. Governmental excellence. Here we go. A fiscally resilient government powered by high-performing and knowledgeable staff equipped with the appropriate tools and resources to offer excellent, equitable, and innovative public service. Foster and maintain fiscal sustainability. Attract, hire, develop, and retain high-performance employees. Optimize facilities, workplaces, and technology systems to meet the demands of government operations, the community, and our growing, changing population. And Objective 5, develop and implement a data-driven strategic plan and performance management that support the city in achieving our vision. I like how they say our vision, as if you and I are included. Grow a culture of innovation and continuous learning that is people-centered, data-informed, experimental, and collaborative so that staff are encouraged to better serve our community. Data, yep, that's more valuable than oil. And 5G coming to Grand Rapids as the Internet of Things. Data is going to be ample for the government. It's going to be, unfortunately, like the Chinese system, the social credit score and everything. Our government really likes that that method that they have, state capitalism or stakeholder capitalism. Implement city priorities in collaboration with community partners to secure financial investments and achieve legislative and policy changes for the betterment of the community. Okay. Economic prosperity and affordability. Residents, employees, and businesses have pathways to financial growth and security. I wonder really quick before we keep going, because nope, 15-minute is not in there. I am going to come back to this. It is quite long. I really want to get to these articles and this video to explain exactly why the 15-minute city is a dangerous idea if you love freedom. What should Grand Rapids' future look like? Residents give input. Now, this came out March 15th, and this is Wood TV 8. The city of Grand Rapids is mapping out its future. Wednesday night, dozens came together to give their input on the city's next community master plan. The master plan will be used to determine ways to help Grand Rapids improve and grow over the next 2 decades. It primarily focuses on land use, development, and infrastructure. How does Grand Rapids grow and develop? What does Grand Rapids look like, and what does Grand Rapids need over the next 20 years? Said Kristen Turkelson, the Grand Rapids Planning Director. We're creating community that's meant for everybody, and that goes from our children right up to our senior population. As the master plan is developed, Turkelson said she's heard lots of discussions surrounding housing, transportation, and safety. Looking at some of our crime prevention strategies, front porches on homes, having proper street lighting, making sure our sidewalk systems are connected so that people can walk because there's an element of see and be seen, Turkelson said. An element of seeing and being seen. Kaimi Spring, a community organizer with the Creston Neighborhood Association. These neighborhood associations, they know about the Delphi Technique and they implement it. Said she would like to see Grand Rapids target environmental challenges. Imagine that. We want Grand Rapids to be the leader in climate change solutions and getting those implemented and helping the most vulnerable populations that will be most affected by flooding and things like that, Spring said. Spring said she would also like to see Grand Rapids address racism and take action such as helping minority business owners. Help them get loans. It shouldn't be harder for someone of color to get a loan from a bank than someone who looks like me, Spring said. Always about race, isn't it? And it brings more division. The most recent master plan was created in 2002, and Turkelson said it has shown it can make a big difference. A lot of great things that are happening today, like the River Restoration Project, the Medical Mile, Turkelson said, all of that work can be tied back to the planning work. We need a good plan if you want to see good things happen in your community. The goal is to have the master plan finished by June of next year, June of 2024. Turkelson said the plan must be reviewed every 5 years and updates can be made. So, what is a 15-minute city? Conspiracy theory. Now, I wanted to show this article first because it's going to be the more mainstream view on the 15-minute city, although it is going to, it tells a lot of information. Real quick, when they say conspiracy theory, I want to say the government's approved media and experts shut down questions and speech they don't like with 2 words, conspiracy theory. But you can often tell what the government wants to hide by tracking what gets labeled a conspiracy theory. Now, there can be a feint within a feint, so you can't just always believe something because it says conspiracy theory either, obviously. We must think critically. We must use our head, our heart, and our gut. The Holy Trinity, perhaps. I don't know. There are 2 very different views of the 15-minute city idea. To some, it's an urban planning concept that promotes sustainable and healthy living. To a small group of others, it's a plot by tyrannical bureaucrats to take our cars and control our lives, which could lead to a real-life Hunger Games scenario. You like how they go all dramatic like that? After outlandish claims about lizard people, 5G, and COVID-19 vaccines, conspiracy theorists are now targeting the world of urban planning, with protests against the 15-minute city concept springing up around the globe. I've been doing urban planning for a long time, but I've never seen something like this. This is the Great Awakening in response to the Great Reset. Because every action has an equal and opposite reaction, man. Life is a beautiful paradox. Todorian, probably completely wrong, who has lobbied for an idea internationally, including in Australia, sums up it's a bit surreal. What is it? A 15-minute city is an urban planning concept where neighborhoods provide residents with the basic things they need. Shops, schools, parks, leisure options, healthcare, within a 15-minute radius by foot or bike. We used to have 15-minute cities as the norm. They were called good neighborhoods, where you didn't have to get into a car for everything. From mid-last century, cities have largely been planned around cars, at the expense of walking and biking, which has often resulted in car dependency and urban sprawl. Well, doesn't it seem like the 15-minute city is trying to go towards walking and biking and get away from cars? Right, the 15-minute city is presented as one possible remedy for this. There are also so many public interest reasons to want to do this. It's kind of a no-brainer. Your carbon footprint is a lot lower, so it's a powerful climate change mitigation tool. It promotes urban health and thus promotes the actual reduction of public health costs. It promotes individual affordability and household affordability because you don't need to own the second car or maybe even the third car. No, you won't own any car. If it's not an electric car, which is really expensive, although supposedly by 2025 they will drop in price significantly. We shall see. Many cities have taken up the idea, or a variation of the idea, in recent years. Melbourne was one of the world's originators of the idea of applying time to our neighborhoods, the amount of time it takes for us to get to the thing that we need or want every day. The idea has been called many things, like complete communities, mixed-use communities, the city of short distances, the slightly different 20-minute neighborhood, Ann Arbor, 20-minute neighborhood, or as Todorian, as chief planner of Vancouver, Canada, completely captured, used to call it the power of nearness. But the 15-minute city really came to global prominence when Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo made it a part of her 2020 re-election campaign. For her, pedestrian and cycle-centered design was the future. She was re-elected. Yes, because are they elected or are they selected? Cities around the world, mayors, politicians started talking about this very old normal concept of why do we have to drive to everything? Why can't we have more choices and more freedom to choose rather than just having only one choice, the car? Wow, more freedom and more choices. It is an upside-down world we live in. So cities started to drop plans and implement different versions of the 15-minute city concept, with increased bike lanes, pedestrianizing areas, never heard that word, cutting down on where cars can go. Cutting down on where cars can go. As NSW Minister Rob Stokes put it last year, the pandemic has seen demand for walking and cycling infrastructure soar, and outdoor spaces valued more than ever. Our vision of 15-minute neighborhoods will also improve health and well-being outcomes and ensure local communities thrive. Wow. So you're saying that the pandemic helped get this narrative to the forefront? It accelerated the plans of the globalists? Interesting. From small lies to big lies. Much of the pushback against the 15-minute city concept is rooted in fiction rather than fact. Oh, here we go. Again, don't believe everything you read in any article ever. Think for yourself. Trust your instincts. Trust yourself. Much of the trust God. Much of the pushback against the 15-minute city concept is rooted. Okay, yes, I'm sorry. The claims start with the idea that limiting car use is government overreach and an attack on individual freedom. Even though, as Todarian says, ironically, it's providing more choice. Well, and from there, it gets, well, weird. Limiting cars and promoting pedestrian or bike access is framed as a slippery slope to government-run open-air prisons. One British TikToker says authorities are planning to divide up towns, cities, etc., and you're going to have to apply for a permit to leave your zone. Spoiler, not true. Spoiler, that's a lie. Right now, the UK is going through the 15-minute city concept. They're ahead of us. Each Western country, or each country rather, that's involved, which there's 175 involved in UN Agenda 21, they all have their own experiment going on, okay? And UK has the 15-minute city. So Oxford is well in advance of that, and there's people that are protesting over there because they're blocking roadways and stuff, training you, like you and I are rats, to get used to less and less freedom. And so, this spoiler not true, give me some data. According to a tweet from controversial Canadian psychologist Jordan Peterson, controversial, the idea that neighborhoods should be walkable is lovely. The idea that idiot, tyrannical bureaucrats can decide by fiat where you're allowed to drive is perhaps the worst imaginable perversion of that idea. And make no mistake, it's part of a well-documented plan. What plan? The 15-minute city concept has also been promoted by the World Economic Forum, leading to claims that it's part of a global scheme around centralization and control. The lies range from small lies, like they're going to not want you to drive at all, to big lies, literally using the term like they want to turn your neighborhood into a concentration camp, that your life is going to be like the Hunger Games, where there's different sectors that you'll be representing. It's even made it to UK Parliament, with one MP calling the idea an international socialist concept that will cost us our personal freedom. See? They're telling you the truth, but they're skewing it and saying anybody who believes this is nuts. Anybody who believes this is a conspiracy theorist, or it's all based in fiction. But where is the proof that it's all based in fiction? Because there's plenty of proof that it's based in fact. Death threats and protests. These sentiments have led to real-life protests. For example, Edmonton in Canada recently embraced 15-minute city plans, which, according to the city, moves us closer to our vision for a more connected, prosperous, healthy, and climate-resilient city. The plan has triggered protests, with organizers incorrectly claiming you will spend 90% of your life in this 15-minute area as they are monitoring your carbon footprint. Digital ID, carbon footprint is part of that. How is this not true? The UK city of Oxford is trying to curb car use on some roads, enforced by traffic cameras and fines. This triggered protests against so-called climate lockdowns, and councillors there have received death threats. Of course, I'm not for death threats. I'm for nonviolent resistance, and however, they're not just using cameras and fines. They are also literally putting huge planters, which the people paid for, and they're blocking roads so that you physically can't use your car to go down that road. So now you're actually creating more carbon, even though carbon is life, so that whole narrative needs to be questioned. But they're creating more carbon by having to drive a different path, a longer path, because they can't go where they normally do. And it's obviously causing them to have to leave earlier for work and yada, yada, yada. They are inconveniencing us, but what they're doing is they're trying to modify our behavior slowly. It's like a frog in a boiling pot of water, right? They can't do it all at once, but still, we're in the Great Awakening, and they're going faster now, and so people are becoming more aware. Whatever the reason, I'm glad, because we need we need to fight against this, okay? The 15-minute city, World Economic Forum ghettos are not about climate, it's tyrannical control. One Oxford protest, which attracted thousands of people, featured a speech by a 12-year-old girl who warned against the dangers of the plan. Now, to me, that's a little bit suspicious because we had a 12-year-old girl, 10 years ago, talk about the other side. So it's just weird that we have 12-year-old girls that are like leading these things. Now, again, it's good to understand what's going on, but it's just weird to me. Greta Thunberg, of course, is who I'm talking about. Why do we have now a 12-year-old on the other side? Something to think about. They are soon to become digital ID facial recognition zones. How dare you steal my childhood and my future, and the future of our children by enslaving us in your crazy digital surveillance prison. Planning our towns and cities. See, I mean, doesn't that sound, how dare you steal my childhood and my future? That does sound like Greta Thunberg, but the other side. That's weird. Todarian is one of many in the urban planning world who have been fighting back in recent months. The more he talks about ongoing reactions to 15-minute city concept, the more exacerbated he gets. They know that the more outrageous the lie, the more attention they get. A lie gets a lot more attention than the rational truth. Rational truth. The biggest casualty may be rational. You know that a lie gets a lot more attention. You know that. I'm not anti-car guy. I'm an anti-car dependency guy. We can't keep planning cities and regions where the car is the only choice because that may seem like freedom to some, but it's kind of the opposite. Dependency is never freedom. They want you dependent on the government. So, yeah. There's always going to be debate in city planning. Always. But there's good faith debate based on disagreements, and then there's deliberate lies and misinformation. If we're going to have a real debate, discussion and democracy and good decision making, truth is a necessity. It's a truth starting point to make good decisions. Or it's a necessary starting point. Yeah. You're the one that's not telling the truth. World Economic Forum. The surprising stickiness of the 15-minute city, March 15th of 2022. This is going to be telling, and we're going to watch a video after this that's going to dive in. This guy did a really good job on the 15-minute city to give you the huge scope and the history. But first, we're going to hear it from the World Economic Forum's mouth. Urbanism trends come and go. Yet the 15-minute city concept, which implies having all necessary amenities within a short walk, bike ride, or public transit trip from one's home, has demonstrated stickiness, not just as an idea, but as a powerful tool for action. From Paris to Seoul, that's probably wrong, Seoul, maybe, that's just Seoul, from Bogota to Houston. For longtime urbanists, the 15-minute city seemed to merely repackage the historic urban pattern of development, walkable, mixed-use districts. Old wine, new bottle, as the saying goes. But for the new framing to ignite a global urbanism movement, clearly there's more going on. The obvious yet incomplete answer is the pandemic. Would Paris's mayor Anne Hidalgo have pushed for progressive urban design without this framing? Undoubtedly. But with COVID-19 and its variants keeping everyone home, or closer to home than usual, the 15-minute city went from a nice-to-have to a rallying cry. Problem, reaction, solution, the Hegelian dialect? You created a problem and then ushered in a certain reaction to get the solution that you want, which is we're basically going to demand a 15-minute city. The banks collapse, and then we demand a central bank digital currency, even though it's going to be our enslavement. Like, this is an ancient tool that they use, and they're telling you right here. It went from nice to have to a rallying cry. Meeting all of one's needs within a walking distance, biking or transit distance, was suddenly a matter of life and death. The pandemic created an urgency around equitable urbanism that sideline arguments about bike lanes and other amenities that have roiled communities for years. Wow. Again, it's almost like the pandemic is hand in hand with the Great Reset and has accelerated the plans tenfold in the last 3 years. The term was coined in 2016 by Professor Carlos Moreno, who was given an Obel Award in 2021 for developing the idea. The graph below comes from a Google Trends search of worldwide usage of the term. The peak in the middle is approximately November 15th, 2020. June 2020 is when the Great Reset officially began, according to the World Economic Forum. Interesting. When a new framing meets its moment, something more than a fad is emerging. Prior to the pandemic, few planners would have taken seriously the idea that home become the central organizing factor of all urban planning. Home, where they want you to stay. Don't leave, pleb. Don't leave, ant. And if you do, you can go 15 minutes away from your home, and that's it. Because you are destroying the planet, and we need to decarbonize, okay? You and I are the problem. We are destroying the world by living. Despite predictions of increased telecommuting, working from home remained an outlier. Indeed, work and commerce have always been the central organizing factors of urbanism, from the post-agricultural revolution to the industrial and technological ones. Historically, most cities grew up around trade, which then developed into more permanent places of commerce. Cities reduced transportation costs for goods and people by bringing them closer together. By reducing these costs, cities increased productivity and thus further evolved the city as a multiplier of culture and innovation. As Aristotle said, the city-state comes into being for the sake of living, but it exists for the sake of living well. More than a century after the adaptation of automobiles and the dominant mode of transportation, work still dictated urban geography, with increasingly longer commutes. Suburbia, the antithesis of the 15-minute city, couldn't exist without proximity to the economic urban engine. So yeah, suburbs are the antithesis. They're out. They're last decade's news, okay? Now it's the 15-minute city. The creative destruction of cities. COVID-19 may now be flipping this on its head, which is why the 15-minute city concept is taking hold in a way that it would not have before the pandemic. Couldn't say it better myself. As demonstrated by the illustration below, the 15-minute city puts home at the center of urban spatial relationships. The point is not to have every culture, amenity, and human desire within immediate reach of one's doorstep. New York can only have one Broadway theater district, but there's no question that Midtown Manhattan will have to follow a similar recovery pattern that Lower Manhattan did in the wake of the 9/11 terrorist attack: diversification. And that is true of the suburbs as well, significantly beyond the extent to which they've already diversified. Now, I have to say this, that attack that happened, the two towers went into one tower. They have a single World Trade Tower. Indeed, the decentralization of work is not going to kill the city, it's going to save it. There will be a lot of creative destruction along the way, but that is how the city renews itself from within. The cities that don't decentralize work will struggle mightily in ways both known and unimaginable. As climate change and global conflict cause shocks and stresses at faster intervals and increasing severity, the 15-minute city will become even more critical. Anyone who has followed Eric Kleinberg's work knows that resilience is rooted in place. Specifically, communities that foster and maintain social and economic relationships don't have to be wealthy, but they do need to be walkable and safe, with both residential and commercial buildings intact. And, I would add, for 15-minute cities to thrive, not just survive crises, and this cannot be stressed enough, they must also have plenty of mixed income and equitable housing, as well as digital access. Yes, because you can't have the digital ID system without digital access, And you will see, if you look into the plans, Detroit, Grand Rapids, Lansing, mixed use buildings. That is the future. All of these commercial buildings are going to, unfortunately, they're going to collapse in price. Nobody is going to the office anymore, and so those buildings they're going to be bought up probably by Vanguard or BlackRock, who bought up half the properties after the 2008 collapse. And they're going to turn it into, on the bottom floor is going to be a shop, and then housing above that. And that is all part of the UN Agenda 21. This is how neighborhoods can know and understand each other as local store owners and workers, colleagues, caregivers, educators, and friends. These are the people who come together when it matters most. The mutual aid groups that appeared during the pandemic exemplify the importance of social cohesion in a crisis, which only works in if necessities are within a reasonable distance of where people live. And yet, 15-minute cities are not just a collection of autonomous medieval villages living in constant state of crisis. The fractal nature of cities is what makes them dynamic places as a collection of connected neighborhoods with their own cultural histories that evolve over time and contribute to the identity of the larger city. The word connected is doing a lot of work here. Yes, people need mass transit and other citywide services, but cities are as much an identity as a place. As historian Harari might say, cities are a fiction, a shared concept that organizes society around cooperation. While Harari focused on nation-states and religion as primary human fictions, I would argue that cities are the most innovative human fiction of all. I need to show you this right now. This is Harari and Schwab. Really quick 40-second video.
Dr. Kissinger, our satellite time is running out. What wonderful opportunity to conclude our week here with such concrete proposals and ideas of how we can really create, I would say, a new world order.
The big political and economic...
This is Harari, right here. This guy is not a good individual, okay? His beliefs are terrible.
Economic question of the 21st century will be, what do we need humans for? Or at least, what do we need so many humans for?
Do you have an answer in the book?
At present, the best guess we have is keep them happy with drugs and computer games. Keep them happy with drugs and computer games.
This individual calls human beings, the people that are going to be displaced from AI, they're useless eaters. He said that. He wrote the book Sapiens, which I have not read, I will not buy, but I have heard booktubers say that the book has changed how they look at human beings. And that is not a good thing, because Sapiens makes it look like you're just another animal. And we're not, okay? We're not. We have consciousness, and we were made in his image. So this is an anti-human individual, as is Klaus Schwab, who was talking to Kissinger at the beginning, if you didn't notice that. So the fact that Harari is such a prominent figure with the World Economic Forum, he's almost like a little mouthpiece. You look into that guy, truly listen to what he says, and you'll see what I mean. He is anti-human. He thinks humans are now hackable, and that's actually okay. In stark contrast to the 15-minute city is the predominant urban trend of the 20th century that continues into the current one, namely rapid urbanization, both dystopian and utopian. An estimated 1 billion urban poor live in informal settlements. Then there's the dystopian ghost towns of China, where 130 million properties are vacant, which could house about 340 million people, surpassing the current U.S. population. The opposing trend is the ground-up construction of smart city utopias. Utopia for who? For a central power? For a central controller? Because a smart city means everything you do is monitored so that your carbon footprint is minimal. And if you take too long of a shower, you're getting punished, okay? Your social credit score is going down, and now you're no longer able to get on that train ride to go see your family. Utopia. Such as Sundago City in South Korea and Masdar City in Abu Dhabi, among others. Even though they're largely considered soulless failures, hope springs eternal. Toyota's Woven City is now under construction in Japan. Between dystopian, bad place, oh, thank you for letting us know, and utopian, no place, is utopia. Okay. A town planning term coined by 19th century Scottish polymath Patrick Geddes. It comes from the Greek origin of eu, meaning good, and topos, meaning place, comprising folk, work, and place. Utopia is the best possible manifestation of a city. According to whom? To better quantify and plan utopias, Geddes developed the concept of vital budget. He argued that society must transition from money wages, which tend to oh my gosh, I'm sorry guys, I should know that word, but I don't. Energies. Dissipate. Thank you, help me. I'm sorry. Dissipate. My brain is working. Energies toward individual gains at the expense of both natural and cultural qualities. To a vital budget, which facilitates conserving energies and organizing the environment toward the maintenance and evolution of life, social, individual, civic. This sounds a lot like 15-Minute City, including the circumstances under which it emerged through the cracks of creative destruction brought on by a technological revolution. So, what's new about the 15-Minute City? As a concept, not much, which is why I initially dismissed it as a fad. But as the old wine, new bottle framing went viral and began to spark real change, it became clear the historical roots of the 15-Minute City connected deeply with the current moment, one that we'll be living with for a long time to come. There is no such thing as a new idea, Mark Twain once said. It is impossible. We simply take a lot of old ideas and put them into a sort of mental kaleidoscope. We give them a turn and they make new and curious combinations. We keep on turning and making new combinations indefinitely, but there are the same old pieces of colored glass that have been in use through all the ages. Right. It's your perspective, right, that changes. All right. We're going to watch this guy. It's really good. He's going to explain exactly what's wrong with this 15-Minute City.
Published an article about the popularity. Last March, the World Economic Forum, or WEF, published an article about the popularity of so-called 15-minute cities and presented this deceptive picture of Google search trends for the term as evidence. As you can clearly see, this search term wasn't popular until recently. More importantly, the recent spike in popularity is not due to widespread support, but widespread opposition to this controversial idea. Today, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about 15-minute cities, including who is behind them, where they're being tried, and why they're the exact opposite of what the WEF has advertised. As the name suggests, the idea of the 15-minute city is basically the belief that existing cities can and should be transformed and divided into districts where everything is available within 15 minutes of walking or cycling. This includes things like schools, hospitals, grocery stores, recreation facilities, and so on. Although this concept of having everything within arm's reach has been around for decades and was tried in places like the Soviet Union, the term 15-minute city was only coined in 2016 by Carlos Moreno. Now, Carlos is a Colombian-born city planner who's been teaching at French universities since the 1980s. In a TED Talk from January 2021, Carlos explained that his primary motivation for designing the 15-minute city was the climate. He also revealed that 15-minute cities would require a, quote, new economic model. But of course, the focus has been around the supposed human benefits it will bring. Now, what's interesting is that the concept of a 15-minute city didn't really take off until the start of the pandemic in early 2020. The story goes that city planners in Paris noticed that people would stay in their local areas because of the pandemic. This gave them the idea to try out Carlos's 15-minute concept in the city. The thing is
What came
that
first?
Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris, was apparently planning on dividing the city into 15-minute districts months before the pandemic actually began. Doing so was actually part of her 2020 re-election campaign. Now, Carlos has also reportedly been advising Anne about the concept for years, if not longer. For context, Anne has been the mayor of Paris since 2014, and Carlos has been working on, quote, digital and sustainable smart cities since the early 2000s. Not surprisingly, Anne is a part of the WEF and has been a contributor to its global agenda. Surprisingly, Carlos is not part of the WEF, at least not yet. You can learn more about the WEF's global agenda using the link in the description. Now, when I say that the concept of a 15-minute city took off at the start of the pandemic, I don't mean that it became popular with the average person. I mean that it became popular with the WEF and other organizations that have been obsessed with achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. For those unfamiliar, the SDGs are a set of 17 goals created by the United Nations, which are supposed to be met by all member countries by 2030.
That's not a
Like
lot
the
of time.
concept of 15-minute cities, the UN's SDGs appear to be benign or appealing, but in reality prescribe the creation of terrifying technologies like digital ID. If you watched our video about digital ID, you'll know that the UN's SDGs are being pushed by the public sector through regulations and by the private sector through ESG
Public-private
investing.
partnerships?
The incentive for the public sector is more control of citizens, and for the private sector, well, it's profits, at least on paper. As far as I can tell, the push for 15-minute cities has come primarily from public institutions, probably because it won't be profitable for the private sector.
Yeah, the
In
government
fact,
wants it.
this is likely why the concept didn't get much publicity until recently, and why private organisations like the WEF haven't been all that involved. Case in point, the WEF's only discussion about 15-minute cities occurred during the Sustainable Development Impact Summit in September 2021, which was co-hosted by the UN. It's actually in this discussion that the Mayor of Melbourne revealed that private sector support is lacking. Now, this begs the question of which organisation is behind the 15-minute city push, and the answer is the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group, or C40 for short. According to Wikipedia, the C40 consists of 97 of the world's largest cities, accounting for 1/12 of the global population and 1/4 of the global economy. C40 was originally founded as C20 in 2005 by then London Mayor Ken Livingstone.
Look at that, Bill
What's
Clinton.
wild is that
who
the
ushered in
C20
the UN,
merged with
Agenda
the
21
Clinton Climate
to America.
Initiative the following year to become the C40. The Clinton Climate Initiative has its roots in the Clinton Foundation. Let's leave it at that. Now, the C40 seems
That's
to
a
have
big
gained
club.
influence after the Paris Agreement of 2015, which was hosted by Anne. The C40 is currently headed by London Mayor Sadiq Khan, and its board of directors is headed by billionaire
Looks like
and former
Chicago.
New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who owns Bloomberg
Toronto.
News. In July 2020, the C40 published an article titled, quote, How to Build Back Better with a 15-Minute
Build
City.
back better. Where have we heard
Shortly
that?
afterwards, many of the 97 cities that are part of the C40 announced
stopped
plans
saying
to
it, didn't
radically
they?
transform themselves to fit the theoretical UN SDG-compliant city created by Carlos and his colleagues. In January last year, the C40 published another article which highlighted Barcelona, Bogota, Buenos Aires, Melbourne, Milan, Paris and Portland as a few of the first
Portland.
movers. Obviously, radically transforming a city in this way isn't cheap. That's why the C40 announced that it had partnered with NREP to pilot the 15-minute city concept in, quote, at least 5 unnamed cities in September last year. Now, NREP is a Danish urban investment firm with $19 billion in assets under management. That may not sound like much, but it's growing very fast. Not only that, but NREP owns, quote, 7 million square meters of real estate across Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Norway and Poland, and has committed to achieving a net zero real estate portfolio by 2028. To that end, NREP has received no shortage of funding from mostly unnamed institutional investors. For anyone wondering, NREP's website notes that it is, quote, majority owned by senior partners and backed by Novo Holdings as the largest individual owner. Novo Holdings is 100% owned by and generates returns to the Novo Nordisk Foundation, one of the largest charitable foundations. I should also note that this 15-minute city pilot is not a two-organisation show. The C40 NREP partnership announcement notes that the pilot includes 2 additional strategic partners, which are, you guessed it, the UN and Carlos. They all hope that the results of the pilot will be applied internationally. So, this brings me to the reason why search trends for 15-minute city have gone parabolic over the last few months. You'll notice that this rally began in mid-November. This is because of the final plans for a 15-minute city pilot that were published by Oxfordshire County Council with the support of Oxford City Council in the UK in mid-November. These plans took the internet by storm because they revealed the reality of what the WEF, the C40, NREP and others had advertised about 15-minute cities. In theory, 15-minute cities are supposed to make life easier and healthier while simultaneously improving the environment and the community. In practice, 15-minute cities mean setting up cameras everywhere to keep track of where everyone is driving to ensure that they do not leave their designated district too frequently. In the case of Oxford, these boundaries will be enforced through traffic filters that will automatically issue fines to violating vehicles. The pilot is tentatively scheduled for the start of 2024, and it will see the city of Oxford divided into 6 districts.
6.
Those living in a particular area will be allowed to drive into other districts up to 100 times a year. After that, fines get issued.
Ooh.
Now, this sounds like a lot until you realise that many people need to drive through several districts to commute to work. The council addressed these concerns by saying that commuters could just use the ring roads outside of the main city. The community responded by pointing out that this would take a lot more time and cause a lot more pollution, and reducing pollution and car use is supposedly the purpose of the pilot.
Supposedly.
To add insult to injury, the council outright ignored the public comments it received during the consultation period for the pilot, which lasted from early October to mid-November. 93% of the 4,814 comments it received were opposed to the pilot
and they
for multiple
pushed it through
reasons,
anyway.
with only 7% supporting it. Now, rather than acknowledge that the pilot was extremely unpopular, the council doubled down on its 15-minute city obsession. It dismissed all critics as conspiracy theorists and went as far as collaborating with social media platforms to fact-check and censor every possible criticism. More about social media censorship in the description.
This is what we're up against.
Now, when the people of Oxford pushed back, the council contacted the mainstream media, which published articles about how council members were being abused for trying to save the planet. Naturally, of course, some goons did feel that council members merited threats for their stance, which is never acceptable, of course.
Correct.
The council also started posting FAQs.
I'm going to pause it just for a second. It's never acceptable. We need to try to help these people, these township boards, understand exactly what's going on. We need to try to win hearts and minds first instead of death threats, because that doesn't make the side against 15-minute cities look good, and optics is so important. So we need to not give death threats and threaten people. We need to try to help them understand, and if they don't, then put in people that do, recall township boards and put in. Now, I would hope that this would work. This is only the first idea that I have. If you have any ideas on how we can combat this without violence, let me know in the comments down below, please, because obviously we need to figure out how we're going to stop this. If we just voice our opposition, they don't care. They call people conspiracy theorists and belittle their concerns and their position. And that happens in all kinds of different ways. I mean, the people that are against Goshen, they've been called xenophobes. So this is a way to just shut down dissent, and we need to figure out how to combat that without violence.
Didn't actually answer the questions being asked. It also stated that the 93% opposition statistic was fake news because only 8% of people said they were opposed, whereas the rest gave specific reasons for why they were opposed. The latter somehow don't count. The worst thing is that the council continues to post articles linking to fact-checking websites and presumably plans on going ahead with the pilot
You can't believe
come hell
fact-checking
or high
websites,
water.
in case you didn't know.
Meanwhile, the people of Oxford have continued to push back. And it's not just Oxford anymore either. Almost every video I watched about 15-minute cities had no shortage of criticism in the comments section. What's messed up is that you don't notice this opposition unless you scroll down, because YouTube removed all the dislikes. So here are a few of the gems I found in these comment sections. Quote, "What you're describing is a village. There's no need to turn the city into a dystopia to achieve what you want. This proves that it's total control that you really want."
Right.
Quote,
"In the name of climate."
"A crime against freedom and thus humanity." Quote, "The part they're leaving out is that you're not allowed to go more than 15 minutes away from home." Quote, "It's all about controlling the little people while the rich fly everywhere." And my personal favourite, quote, "This assumes that we will all be forcibly moved into cities. I do not accept that." Now, make no mistake,
But
these
does it matter what you
criticisms
want?
are valid,
Does it matter
and
what I
they
want?
are truly the tip of the iceberg. Some of the biggest criticisms have come from within the 15-minute city movement itself. One area of issue has been segregation. Dividing cities into districts will guarantee that the poor stay poor and the rich stay rich. Some would say that's the entire purpose of the plan. This seems to be more than speculation because during the WEF's aforementioned discussion about 15-minute cities, the panelists discussed how different cities will have different rules for different districts. In other words, the rich will remain free. The most enraging part of it all is that the UN and all the other unaccountable and unelected institutions involved have repeatedly claimed that 15-minute cities will somehow make existing cities decentralized. This is patently false because districts in 15-minute cities will be close together and centrally controlled. But back to that last critical YouTube comment, the implicit assumption that everyone will end up in cities. Now, the UN has projected that 80% of people will live in cities by 2050. The UN is concerned that this will lead to an unsustainable increase in consumption. Controlling this consumption seems to be the primary motivation here, and it's arguably guaranteed that the people living in some districts will be able to consume more than others. The catch is that the UN's consumption projection also assumes that the population will grow by 2.5 billion people by 2050. If you watched our video about population decline, you'll know that the global population is not growing nearly as quickly as the UN is projecting.
Yes,
Moreover, the UN's assumption that people will move to cities was disproven during the pandemic. Millions of people moved to rural areas thanks to remote work. This is yet another nugget of evidence which suggests that 15-minute cities have absolutely nothing to do with the environment nor the average person's quality of life. As that one YouTube critic pointed out, everything that 15-minute cities claim to want to do is already being done in towns and villages. Populations being geographically spread out into communities is the true definition of decentralization, and it's also one of the ways that people can avoid falling into this 15-minute fever dream. If a community can secure its own food, water, shelter, and companionship, well then, its people won't need others to tell them how to live.
You're right. You won't need the
Now,
government.
the
They want you
15-minute
relying
cities
on the
being
government.
sold
So then they
look
can
a
tell
lot
you what
like
to do,
an
and you have to
excuse
listen.
for more control. This ties into something I'm sure many of you are wondering, and that's whether the C40 will succeed in rolling out 15-minute cities. Well, I'll start by saying that I'm sure the pilots will be declared successful. To be clear, I'm not saying that the pilots will actually be successful, just that they will be declared successful by the
All right, so there's just a few more minutes left. I'll leave the link down in the description. This is the Coin Bureau. He very, very good videos. I highly recommend you subscribe to his channel, and you can check out more on the 15-minute city and the central bank digital currency. And the thing of it is people they did move out into the country, but if they make it harder to live in the country because your amenities like your hospitals close down, you don't fix the roads, so the roads start getting bad, make it too expensive to live in the country, then slowly but surely people will go back to the city. But yeah, we don't know exactly, obviously, what plans they have in order to push us back into the city. But you can best believe they have plans. One more quick video. This is the German MEP, Christine Anderson, on 15-minute cities, and this is the New World Order YouTube channel.
Green certificate, the COVID pass, that was a test balloon to get people to having to produce some kind of a QR code, just getting people used to that. Now what they're slamming us with is these 15-minute cities. Make no mistake, it's not about your convenience. It's not that they want you to be able to, have all of these places that you need to get to very close. And it's not about saving the planet either, by the way. The 15-minute cities, they will have to have those before they can lock you down. And that's what we're talking about here. So in Great Britain, some county already passed legislation. They will be able to impose a climate lockdown. That's the next step. That's what we're talking about. So in order to do that, they will have to have these 15-minute cities. The next step then, of course, will be you are only allowed to leave your immediate area for, let's say, 2 or 3 times a year. So, but there's other people that may have more money, and they can actually buy your passings off of you. So guess what? The poor people will be left in these 15-minute neighborhoods, while the ones that are better off get to go wherever they want to go. So this is what we're talking about, Look at Saudi Arabia, for instance. They're pulling up Neom City. They call it the Line. So this is like a structure in the middle of the desert.
Crazy.
200 kilometers long, 200 meters wide, 500 meters high. And it will house up to 9 million people. Oh, isn't that just brilliant? If I wanted to get total control of the people, that's exactly where and how I would house them. And then having them on a 3 meals a day prescription, well, guess what will happen if you do not do as you are told? They will probably cancel that. It's so easy. So that's what we're talking about. And when you really take all of this together, there is no other way for me to actually say this. It will be a complete impoverishment and enslavement of all the people. And I'm stating it so clearly because that's what it seems like and that's what it looks like to me.
And again, that's a German MEP. So usually, well, I'm not going to get into that. Germans, Germans are more I don't know how to say this because I love all people and everybody should be treated as an individual on an individual basis. But, as a whole, if you read history, materialism came from Germany, and that's what went over to Russia, actually, and kind of destroyed Russian culture. But I'm not going to get into all that. I just want to show you really quick. Ann Arbor wants to have a 20-minute neighborhood. Not going to get into the article because this is about Grand Rapids master plan, but just know that it's not just Grand Rapids, but it's Lansing. I can actually go back to this. Holland has their own. 2017. Wow, Holland has been in it for a while. In ICLEI, and then Lansing, and Ann Arbor. So, lots going on in Michigan. All right, Delphi Technique. We need to get into this. It's really important. because they use it at these workshops. So if you go on May 18th to the workshop, know that there are people that are from these neighborhood committees or what have you, these neighborhood councils. They know about the Delphi technique and they use it. So it was developed by the RAND Corporation for the United States Department of Defense as a psychological warfare weapon in the 50s and 60s. It was originally conceived as a way to obtain the opinion of experts without necessarily bringing them together face to face. In Educating for the New World Order by Beverly Eakman, the reader finds reference upon reference for the need to preserve the illusion that there is lay or community participation in the decision-making process, while lay citizens were in fact being squeezed out. The Delphi technique is the method being used to squeeze citizens out of the process, effecting a left-wing takeover of the schools. A specialized use of this technique was developed for teachers, the Alinsky method. The setting or group is, however, immaterial. The point is that people in groups tend to share a certain knowledge base and display certain identifiable characteristics, known as group dynamics. This allows for a special application of a basic technique. The change agent, or facilitator, goes through the motions of acting as an organizer, getting each person in the target group to elicit expression of their concerns about a program, project, or policy in question. The facilitator listens attentively, forms task forces, urges everyone to make lists, and so on. While she is doing this, the facilitator learns something about each member of the target group. He or she identifies the leaders, the loudmouths, as well as those who frequently turn sides during the argument, the weak or non-committal. Suddenly, the amiable facilitator becomes devil's advocate. He or she dons his personal agitator hat, using the divide and conquer technique. He or she then manipulates one group's opinion against the other. This is accomplished by manipulating those who are out of step to appear ridiculous, unknowledgeable, inarticulate, or dogmatic. He or she wants certain members of the group to become angry, thereby forcing tensions to accelerate. The facilitator is well trained in psychological manipulation. He or she is able to predict the reactions of each group member. Individuals in opposition to the policy or program will be shut out of the group. The method works. It is very effective with parents, teachers, school children, and any community group. The targets rarely, if ever, know that they are being manipulated. If they do suspect this is happening, they do not know how to end the process. The desired result is for group polarization and for the facilitator to become accepted as a member of the group and group process. He or she will then throw the desired idea on the table and ask for opinions during discussion. Very soon, his or her associates from the divided group begin to adapt the idea as if it were their own and pressure the entire group to accept the position. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy that they use psychological warfare against us? But I mean, you can see it in the media every day that's what they're doing. Divide and conquer, you know? Don't look at the people that are making these plans. Look at your neighbor. Look at them, whatever differences they have. Men versus women, all the races versus each other. Any division that you can get. It's a crazy time we live in, but there is hope. There is hope, and I'm going to show you there's in here how we can fight this technique. This technique is a very unethical method of achieving consensus on a controversial topic in group settings. It requires well-trained professionals who deliberately escalate tension among group members, pitting one faction against the other so as to make one viewpoint appear ridiculous, so the others become sensible, whether such is warranted or not. And so if you do go to the meeting on May 18th, I hope that you will observe and see if this happens. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go. I don't know if I can record. I mean, I'm assuming that I could. I'm going to look into that. But if I can live stream it, I will. But I'm going to look for these tactics. That one's right here. Disrupting the Delphi. The Delphi technique is being used at all levels of government to move meetings to present conclusions. For the purpose of this dissertation, facilitator references anyone who has been trained in the use of Delphi Technique and who is running a meeting. There are 3 steps to diffusing the Delphi Technique when facilitators want to see a group move in the specific direction. Always be charming. Smile, be pleasant, be courteous. Moderate your voice so as not to come across as belligerent or aggressive. Again, optics, optics, optics. Stay focused. If at all possible, write your question down to help you stay focused. Facilitators, when asked questions they don't want to answer, often digress from the issue raised and try to work the conversation around to where they can make the individual asking the question look foolish or feel foolish, appear belligerent or aggressive. The goal is to put the one asking the question on the defensive. Do not fall for this tactic. Always be charming, thus deflecting any insinuation, innuendo, etc. that may be thrown at you in their attempt to put you on the defensive, but bring them back to the question you asked. If they rephrase your question into an accusatory statement, a favorite tactic, simply state, "That is not what I stated. What I asked was," and repeat your question. Stay focused on your question. Be persistent. If putting you on the defensive doesn't work, facilitators often resort to long, drawn-out dissertations on some off-the-wall and usually unrelated or vaguely related subject that drags on for several minutes. During that time, the crowd or group usually loses focus on the question asked, which is the intent. Let them finish with their dissertation or expose, then nicely, with focus and persistence, state, "But you didn't answer my question. My question was," and then repeat it. Always be charming, stay focused, and be persistent. Never, under any circumstance, become angry. Anger directed at the facilitator will immediately make the facilitator the victim. This is why, even at township board meetings, all the meetings, I understand that people are angry, and they're rightfully angry, but we cannot show them our anger, and we cannot put it on to them because then they become the victim, when in reality, I'm not for victim mentality at all, but the people that didn't get a vote are the real victims, the people that are trying to voice their opinion and you're not listening. But again, getting angry does not help at all. It makes the real perpetrator look like the victim. It flips it, it inverts it on its head. Never under any circumstance become angry. That'll make them the victim. This defeats your purpose, which is to make you the victim. Again, I'm not for the victim mentality. I just want to throw that out there. The goal of the facilitator is to make those they are facilitating like them, alienating anyone who might pose a threat to the realization of their agenda. Agenda 21. People with fixed belief systems who know what they believe and stand on what they believe are obvious threats. If the participant becomes the victim, the facilitator loses face and favor with the crowd. This is why crowds are broken up into groups of 7 or 8, why objections are written on cards, not voiced aloud, where they are open to public discussion and public debate. It's called crowd control. It is always good to have someone else or 2 or 3 others who know the Delphi technique disperse the crowd who, when the facilitator digresses from the question, will stand up and say nicely, "But you didn't answer that lady or gentleman's question." The facilitator, even if suspecting you are together, certainly will not want to alienate the crowd by making that accusation. Sometimes it only takes one occurrence of this type for the crowd to figure out what's going on. Sometimes it takes more than one. If you have an organized group, meet prior to the meeting to strategize. Everyone should know their part, then follow up after the meeting to analyze what went right, what went wrong and why, and what needs to happen the next time around. Never meet during the meeting. One of the favorite tactics of the facilitator, if the meeting is not going the way they want and there is measurable resistance, is to call a recess. During the recess, the facilitator and his or her spotters, people who wander the room during the course of the meetings watching the crowd, observe the crowd to see who congregates where, especially those who have offered measurable resistance. If the resistors congregate in one place, a spotter will usually gravitate to that group to join in the conversation and report back to the facilitator. When the meeting resumes, the facilitator will still steer clear of those who are resistors. Do not congregate. Hang loose and work the crowd. Move to where the facilitators or spotters are. Listen to what they have to say, but do not gravitate to where another member of your team is. This strategy also works in a face-to-face, one-on-one meeting with anyone who has been trained in how to use the Delphi technique. So, again, I will be going to the meeting May 18th, and I will be observing if this technique is being utilized, which I'm 90% sure that it will be. I just threw a number. Excuse me. Woo. Voice is starting to get tired. I know this one's a long one, and I thank you guys for hanging out with me. I still have a few pieces of information for you. Are you being Delphied? This goes into a lot of the same information. One variation of the Delphi technique is to use a series of meetings. They may call them visioning meetings. That's exactly what they call them. The attendings are often a number or a colored card when they enter the room, given a number or a colored card, to determine at which table they are to sit. Okay, so we're going to see if that's what happens. The purpose of this is to break up the groups of potentially knowledgeable people who arrive together so that they will be sitting with strangers and therefore subdued. Typically, there is a facilitator at each table, someone who will know which way to help steer the group. Usually, the people at each table are instructed to answer among themselves some of the questions and arrive at a table consensus. Someone is chosen to speak for the table. Most of the time, it is the person who has already been secretly pre-briefed about the desired Delphi outcome. The table spokesperson is the only one allowed to address the podium, and the others have little opportunity to address the podium or crowd directly. Anyone knowledgeable enough or brave enough to speak out in opposition will not be welcomed. Often they are told from the podium, we don't have time to discuss that now, or we discuss that on another date, or we can discuss that after the meeting. They will attempt to quiet, isolate, and discredit dissenters. After attending the Delphi meeting, participants may feel uneasy that they are in disagreement with a apparent majority. The Delphi technique is often successful in bluffing people into submission, but don't let them succeed. Call their bluff. The Delphi technique often uses a series of surveys to bring about consensus. The surveys are promoted as information gathering regarding the wishes of a targeted public, but in reality they are designed to manipulate the desired outcome. The survey will sometimes use a grading like agree all of the time, agree most of the time, agree some of the time, yada yada. Or the survey grading will ask the respondents to use ratings like most important, moderately important, least important. The questions are typically loaded questions. These questions are designed to restrict the issue to the one that the city, or whomever is running the meeting, has planned to approve prior to ever meeting with the public and call it consensus. We are indebted to the people of the town. Okay, so this group right here, Santa Rosa Neighborhood Coalition, they are actually educating people on what the Delphi technique is, and they created a group to go against the Bay Area super city that they're making over there. Unfortunately, I think that they lost in 2020 or something like that, but they're still not done fighting, and they fought for a long time. Okay, going back to the strategic plan for Grand Rapids. The economic prosperity and affordability. I'll just read the objectives really quick. Sorry. Complete a community master plan updated, driven by smart growth principles, and that establishes a vision that reflects the community's values and priorities. Well, now we know about the Delphi technique. How are those identified? Support the creation, retention, and growth of businesses that enhance residents' employment opportunities. Support a thriving and resilient business environment by optimizing processes and regulations for property development and business-related permitting, and approvals. Objective 4, ensure all residents have safe, stable, and permanent housing. Objective 5, support development and placemaking efforts that contribute to making Grand Rapids a destination city. Create partnerships, to enhance and promote activation of public spaces. Engaged and connected community. Residents and stakeholders have awareness of and voice in decisions that affect them and receive culturally responsive and proactive communication. Objective 1, enhance communication with the public. Yeah, like they want our opinions, or at least they say they do, but then when we give them, they shut it down. Objective 2, elevate resident voice and ensure that the community has equitable and accessible opportunities to engage with the city in meaningful ways. Objective 3, incorporate processes to collect and integrate commission, community, and staff feedback and priorities into city strategies, performance, and budgeting activities. Health and environment. The health of all people and the environment are advocated for, protected, and enhanced. Objective 1, reduce carbon emissions, even though carbon is life. Support climate adaptation and increase climate resiliency, just as the city planning manager said. Resiliency. Objective 2, ensure equitable access to and use of green spaces and recreational offerings. Supply excellent water, sewer, and stormwater services and protect and preserve our water resources. Continue to replace lead service lines. Doing that. Proactively work to minimize the risk of residential water sewer service shutoffs and create innovative solutions to avoid shutoff services. Objective 4, minimize waste generation and promote waste diversion practices. Implement waste diversion program across all city operations, recycling, composting, biodigester, wood waste, electronics. Objective 5, collaborate with and support partners working to reduce health disparities and resulting undesirable outcomes. Let's see. Anything in here that jumps out? Not really. Yes, continuing to incentivize and support the cleanup and beneficial reuse of brownfields and other contaminated properties. I am going to do a whole video on brownfields because it's extremely important that we understand what a brownfield is and how it's actually being used against us. Mobility. Innovative, efficient, low carbon, and equitable mobility solutions are safe, affordable, and convenient to the community. Objective 1, implement proactive mobility and safety solutions through evaluation, engineering, enforcement, and education that results in safe, multimodal transportation corridors. What are multimodal transportation corridors? Develop a comprehensive strategy for safety education and messaging centered around Vision Zero and driving change concepts. So it looks like I'm going to need to look into what Vision Zero and driving change concepts are since they are capitalized. They're obviously some kind of initiative that we need to know about. Implement changes to the neighborhood traffic calming program to ensure more community input and help create neighborhoods where people feel safe. Safe. People are safe and feel safe. Objective 2, create an accessible, low to no carbon, multimodal transportation experience and reduce single occupant vehicle travel through innovative 21st century mobility options. Low to no carbon, multimodal transportation experience and reduce single occupant vehicle travel. Sounds like they don't like cars? Do you think that's an accurate statement for that objective? Nothing. Dash program. Again, don't really know exactly the dash, but some kind of public transportation, I'm sure. Develop a well-maintained and coordinated transportation network through planning, partnership, effective asset management, and efficient project delivery that strengthens Grand Rapids' economy. Continue to implement the 5 to 10 year equitable economic development and mobility strategic plan. There's another one. Equitable Economic Development and Mobility Strategic Plan. Those being capitalized are initiatives that are being implemented, so we should know what they are, and I will look into that, see if I can find anything that you need to know. I'm sure there's plenty in there. And they never, they don't share this information easily. You have to go, I mean, it's easy to find, I will say that, but they don't put it in the newspaper. Develop an effective customer responsive parking system. Curb management plan. There's another one. Safe community. All people feel safe and are safe at all times throughout our community. Safety or freedom? I would take freedom all day, every day. Provide constitutional and community policing services that enhance trust, transparency, accountability, and the safety of every resident, employer, employee, and visitor. Revise the police department strategic plan. Another one. What is that? Increase community trust of policing. Identify and implement innovative recruiting, hiring, and retention strategies to achieve desired outcomes and ensure the police department represents the diversity of Grand Rapids. Objective 2, provide professional fire and emergency medical services that enhance trust, transparency, accountability, and the safety of every resident, employer, employee, and visitor. Sounds good? Utilize FUSE and HOT frameworks, whatever those are, to reduce the impact of top emergency medical services super users. Strengthen the use of residential safety program in the neighborhoods to reduce residential structure fires. You know what causes a lot of random fires? EV batteries, especially in bikes, at bike shops. Enhance collaboration across city departments and the community partners and residents, focusing on the social determinants of health to ensure safety for all. Objective 4, mitigate, prepare for, and provide timely, equitable, and effective response to and support the community's recovery from emergencies and disasters, with an emphasis on violent reduction efforts where applicable. Objective 5, ensure civilian oversight of public safety with an emphasis on accountability, transparency, restorative justice, and community involvement. What's restorative justice? That's something I need to figure out. Continue to implement Cure Violence Grand Rapids as an evidence-based strategy to address violence by using community-based public safety solutions. Yes, it seems like the city of Grand Rapids has become more, less safe, let's say, but maybe that is so that we ask for more police state activities. You know, that problem reaction solution. If you make the cities terrible, we'll be begging for government to help us. Implementation, there was right here, maybe this is it. No. Presentations. I did have something and I accidentally closed it and I'm regretting it. That said something about golf court master plan update. And I wanted to say something about that because golf courses are unsustainable. So I wonder what that means. As you would imagine, the environmental impact of a golf course is sky high. What is the environmental impact of a golf course? Although it's regarded by some as an outdoorsy sport, it's absolutely terrible for the planet, and this was in 2021. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but just like dams, golf courses are unsustainable. All that green is bad for the environment, okay? Even though it's supposed to be pro-green. Maybe this is it. Yes, I found it. So if you go to golf course, complete a golf course master plan. That's on the objectives for 2023. I thought that was interesting. I actually have a couple things. Let's see. I'm on page 10, page 11. right here, launched values-focused employee training for 3 of the 6 city values. So that's just like anti-bias training, but it's, you know, behavior modification programs and such, where they teach you what they want you to believe. What else we got? Page 14. We have launch community master plan public engagement phase, support Grand River equity initiatives, continue downtown Grand Rapids business retention and expansion partnership. Yes, keep going. This is the 2022 kind of summary in a presentation form. And again, I'll have all the links for everything in the description. There's tons of stuff to go over. I have read through a lot of it, but maybe half actually. It feels like a lot because there is a lot of information. And there's hours upon hours of video that I'm actually going to review as well. But there's just so much information out there. I really wanted to share the key points with you so that you understand where this master planning, where they come from, where these goals and values come from. They say the community helped shape them, but as we read in the Delphi Technique, that is a front. They really don't want our opinion. And so, again, I don't know what the solution is. I know it's not violence. But if people in Oxford, 97% or 95% of them say they don't want something and they implement it anyway, just like Green Charter Township, the people that were surveyed, you know, I think it was over 80% of them did not want it. Why wasn't a survey done before? Because they don't want our opinion. They don't care. It doesn't matter that we don't want it. They're going to do it anyway. But how do you stop it without violence? Because I'm not for violence. Let me know in the comments. A few more things I wanted to share. Page 25. Yep. Continue implementing equitable, healthy, and zero carbon building initiative. Advance climate change and environmental justice work, including beginning the creation of Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, CAAP. Yet another, I'm going to write that one down. Another one that I have to look into. Track avoided carbon from the biodigester. Install electric cart infrastructure. Finalize LED streetlight replacement. So, track carbon. That is a key part of this whole thing that is worrisome. And that is why I won't put on my business card I'm trying to create, I won't put that little QR code. Excuse me. I won't put it on my card because they're trying to, again, like a boiling frog, they're trying to get us to accept, oh, you show your QR code everywhere, like boop. When you go into a Whole Foods in New York City, there's one you cannot get in unless you present your phone and a little code. Boop. And that sets a dangerous precedent. It's like getting us used to the idea. It's such a dangerous slippery slope. Continue lead service pipeline replacement. Manage the local brownfield revolving fund program. Establish science-based target for community-wide carbon reduction and launch EH0 initiative for residential commercial GHG reduction. Biodigester producing natural gas and selling RNG to DTE, heat power to the plant. Biodigesters have reduced overall process sludge volume by approximately 40%, avoiding landfill transportation and tipping fees. There's another thing that there's just so much information about so many things I can't keep up, but if you know anything about the biodigester, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Let me know in the comments, please. Finalizing community-wide greenhouse gas emissions. Adopted community-wide science-based target for emissions of 62% per capita reduction by 2030 compared to 2019 and 100% reduction by 2050. If you look at America 2050 agenda, it shows a map where it has 11 different mega regions, one of them the Great Lakes region, and it's going to be a high-speed rail that goes in between them. Doesn't that sound like the Hunger Games? I know that this article said that that's just a conspiracy theory, that we're going to be the Hunger Games society. But when you think about it logically and you put all the information together, people don't just make this up. Like, it's not a stretch, is what I'm trying to say. It is a logical conclusion based on what they are saying they want to do, and then their actions versus their words. You know, they say that they want to save the environment, but then lithium mining is terrible for the environment. So, what is it really about then? Is it about a service-based vehicle rather than a product-based? Is it about power? I mean, it's literally about power. So, they lie. They say it's about the environment, but that's just the green mask. A couple more things real quick. 31. Oh, wait. 28 had this. Finalizing community-wide greenhouse emissions. Yeah, adopted community-wide greenhouse gas. That's what I wanted to point out on that page. Okay. 31. Building specific strategies and targets for inclusion in CAAP. Key partners, 2030 District, Urban Core Collective, BIPOC Consultation Team, Green Star, Community Services, Community Development, Code Compliance, Building Inspections, Economic Development. 2030 District. What is that? I need to write that one down too. And 35. Continue implement did you get that? Implement Vision Zero pedestrian safety. Install traffic safety projects. Continue to maintain sidewalks and install connectivity projects for Corval and Kenosha. Implement the sidewalk snow assist pilot. Maintain vital streets commitments. There's a dash operations. Develop an equity-based transportation pass program. What does that mean? Does that mean depends on how much you make per year? Like that's how much you have to pay for the dash pass? I don't make that make sense. Create neighborhoods of focus-based transportation solutions such as car share. So, I mean, obviously, this is extremely long. There's a lot of information here. 37. Yeah, what is Dash 3.0? It does look like it's probably an electric bus. Let me know if it is an electric bus. All right. I think I shared enough with you. I will leave the master plan down below. What do you guys think? Do you think that this master plan sounds good? Are you for a 15-minute city? Do you think that the people that are against it are silly conspiracy theorists, or do you think there's some valid concerns? I, again, will be at the May 18th meeting. I hope to see you there, and we'll see if they take people's considerations to heart, if they actually listen to people. I've never been to one of these master plan meetings, so I really don't know what to expect except for people like Rosa Corey, who fought this all the way back in 2011, 2010. So, thank you guys. I appreciate you. Look out for my next video, and I'll see you in the next one.